All right, so just in case you have forgotten what a sex-linked trait is, karyotype. I know that you remember the karyotype. I guess I could, show you actually one. So the karyotype, here's one here. This one's a male. So this down here in the bottom right-hand corner, these are your sex chromosomes. We went over this the other day. And this X right here, this long X, this is where basically our sex-linked traits are carried. So sometimes you'll see them called X-linked. Oops, I guess I'm not showing my whiteboard anymore. That's kind of funny. Sometimes you'll see them X-linked, called X-linked, and sometimes you'll see them called sex-linked. So here's the female version. Because they are carried on the X. Now there are some traits. So there's two chromosomes for the female because that's how X's work. And there's only one X chromosome for the male. And of course there's no Y in the female. There are traits that are carried on the Y, just a few. The Y chromosome has actually got pretty small number of genes on it. And so that's kind of there's not too many carried on there, but we don't really talk about the inheritance of the Y chromosome as being a part of sex-linked traits very much. Can anybody tell me, just if you think about it a second, how the inheritance of Y-linked traits would work? Like how, if you were going to do a Y-linked trait like pedigree, one of those charts where you see the family tree, how would you know it was a Y-linked trait? What would that look like?
Would no females ever having it?
Okay. Okay. Brandon, true. No females ever having it. All right, Trevin, did you have something to add?
No, that was what I was going to say.
Okay. What if you had... Go ahead, Brandon.
I was just going to say, if there's any, male offspring, it has to have it.
Okay, if the dad has it, right?
Yeah, if the dad has it, then every male offspring after that has to have it.
Yes. So it's pretty obvious when it's a Y-linked trait. And so we don't spend a lot of time talking about the inheritance of Y-linked traits because it's pretty obvious. Like if dad has it, all the sons have it, none of the daughters. And then those sons had boys, all those boys have it, none of their daughters. It's pretty obvious it's a Y-linked trait. Okay, so that's not something we spend time on. You don't do a Punnett square for Y-linked traits. I mean, I think you can figure out why. Like if there's a Y, they'd all have, the boys would all, there's no reason to do the probability of that. It's 100% chance a boy will have it, 0% chance a girl will have it every single time if the dad has it. So
confused. Last night I was looking over our lab today and for passing down of the red eyes being dominant and white eyes. Why is that only seen in males? Is that a Y?
So probably not. Probably you're not seeing it only in, you could see it in females. It's just more rare. And that's what we're going to go over today with X-linked traits. Red eyes and white eyes and flies is sex-linked on the X. Okay, and so I'll show you in a second, and I think it'll clear it up why that in particular that happens. Because we do see that. Okay, so show of hands, anybody that's colorblind? You know someone that's colorblind. I know someone that's colorblind. I know several people that are. So think about these people. I want you to consider them in your head. Keep your hand up if that person is female. Okay, so did you see what just happened? This always happens, okay? Always. You can put your hand down, Caitlin. Okay, so I always ask this of my classes, and a lot of people know colorblind people. Like that is not rare. But when I asked them to keep their hands up for female, maybe one person out of sometimes 38 will have their hand up. And it's shocking because I know about 5 people that are colorblind. It's not just one. And all of them are male. And so red-green colorblindness, and by the way, that is red-green colorblindness, not any colorblindness. Other colorblindness is a little more rare. Red-green is the most common, and it is the most common because we see it so much in males because it's a sex-linked trait. That just means it's carried on their X chromosome. And so we're going to look at how red-green colorblindness works, but also there's a lot of traits. Hemophilia is another one that we talk about all the time. Sex-linked trait, it's a blood clotting disorder. You don't make platelets properly. Your blood doesn't clot properly. It can be really, really bad. Red-green colorblindness, not so much. You can't see red and green. Maybe Christmas is a little dull for you or something, but you're not going to die from it. Okay. I guess unless you can't tell if the light is red or green, that might be a problem. I always worry about it when I'm in different like places where they have their light sideways. Have you ever seen that? Instead of up and down? And I'm like, if I came here and I didn't know the light pattern and I was red-green colorblindness, I wouldn't know if it's the left or the right that was supposed to be lit up because they both look kind of like a bluish gray to me. And so that would be really strange. So I'd have to know, is it left or right that's red or green? Or else that might be life-threatening. Anyway, otherwise, red-green colorblindness is a issue, and people that have it, I'm sorry, that's terrible. But you're not going to like bleed to death because of it, like hemophilia, which is actually really bad. But anyway, so those are the two most common sex-linked traits that we talk about. But there's also things like what we call male pattern baldness. And that's whenever you have this early onset balding. So that whenever you're like maybe in your teens or your 20s, your hair starts to recede. And then by the time you're like mid-20s, you have no hair. And so that actually comes from your mom's side of the family. And so, but we almost always only see it in men, just like color blindness. Okay. Red-green color blindness. Okay. So let's just look at my funny little Punnett square. Let's just look at how this works. So first of all, I think you'll remember from when you were in, we're going to have a little update here. No, thank you. So I think you'll remember your freshman year that you had to put X's and Y's on these Punnett squares. Okay. That's because you have to represent the 2 X chromosomes from the female and the fact that you have an X here and then a Y for the male. Now remember, these traits are carried on the X chromosome. So this Y doesn't have that gene. That doesn't exist. So the red-green color blindness gene doesn't exist on the Y chromosome. Neither does hemophilia, because this is a non-homologous pair. They do not code for the same genes. Okay, so we have the Y there because we have to identify if they're boys or girls for like chances of having a disorder or whatever. So I'm going to say that in this, I'm going to use B for like typical color vision. And then I'm going to use the little b, recessive, for color blindness. Okay, and so I'm going to say a mom that is heterozygous. So she's a carrier. Remember the term carrier? That means that she doesn't have it, but she carries it. So she sees color vision, but her children could be colorblind. She marries a guy that has typical color vision. Okay, so that's how you'd set up your Punnett square. Now remember, these can be done in a dihybrid cross or a trihybrid cross. This can be a part of it. And so you'd have to be able to do this little Punnett square too if they asked you to do this. And that's one of the problems I want to go back and find. Send you over. I should have looked it up earlier. A little problem that we used to do where they'd show up quite a bit, these sex-linked traits mixed with regular. Okay, so now you can see why the boys tend to have sex-linked traits more than girls. And that's because when you have, it's just a probability thing. Probability that you're going to have both parents with the color blindness trait is a little bit low in the general population. Typically, once again, we see males with it more than females. But then look, so this one has what I'd call the colorblind B. This one has the colorblind B too. She does. But what else does she have? Well, she's a typical vision allele. And so that means that she'll be able to see color vision. So the proteins that are made here that drive the formation of the eye and the rods and the cones behind the eye are allowing that color vision, the wavelengths of red and green, to be processed properly in the brain, where this one is not. Okay, so but she's got enough here that she can see color. This guy didn't have a typical protein forming allele, and so he got that same allele from mom, but he didn't have another one to kind of like help him out there. Okay, so 50% chance that a boy will have it, no chance that a girl will have it. Yes, the question is asked is does this one, is this a carrier? Yes. So she's just like her mother. She could give her children color blindness, but she can see color vision. Okay. And then
probability.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
What's the probability of her offspring having color blindness?
This carrier here?
Yeah.
It would just depend on who she married. So if she marries a man that is has color vision, then it'll be the same. But if she married someone who's colorblind, we can look at that probability. Now, if you're really like, so say your grandpa is colorblind. So your grandpa is, now you're sitting here thinking, is my grandpa colorblind? I better think about this. So say your grandpa is colorblind, and then you marry your girl, your grandpa's colorblind, and, or your dad, even better. Say your dad is colorblind. You marry a man that's colorblind. You could be like this one. I guess I could do this. You could be this one, or you could be this one. So now you've got a 50-50 chance of which one you are, unless you do like a 23andMe or something and see if you actually have it. You wouldn't know. Hang on a second. Let's do that probability. If your dad is colorblind, you definitely are a carrier. And so that's kind of fun. So then you definitely have a 50% chance of passing on that to your children. Let's look at that. Okay, so right now let's stop at this one and just make sure we understand it. We have 2 females. Neither one of them are colorblind. You do have 50% chance that you'll have a carrier of it. And then you have 2 males. One is colorblind and one is perfectly like normal color vision. Now I want you to be aware that males cannot carry sex-linked traits. The term carrier means you don't have it, but you can give it to your offspring. Males, if they have it, like you know it, like they can't hide it somewhere in there. Like there's no way for it to be hidden. So there's no males carrying sex-linked traits. They either have it or they don't. They only have one X. Does that make sense? It's kind of a common question that pops up, like about men being carriers of sex-linked traits. Just doesn't happen. Okay, so let's change this out and let's pretend like there's only a couple other scenarios you can do, really. Only 2. Well, I guess maybe 3. You could have 3 scenarios. It's the 3 things that mom could have. Okay, so say your dad was colorblind, but you're not, and you're female. So you know if your dad was colorblind, you have to have one colorblind X because your dad only had that one. Say you marry colorblind dude. Maybe you guys met at like the colorblindness like support group. I don't know. Because that's a lot of colorblindness in one Punnett square. Okay. Now all of a sudden things change. So Anya, you asked about the red and white fly eye thing. Yeah, so there could be a time when females do show that sex-linked trait, but it would have to be like the mother and the dad would have to have it. And so it's a little bit, probability is just a little less. Not that it's gone, like probability could happen. Now, yeah, a female can have male pattern baldness. So you can, every once in a while, you'll see a female that just seems to be losing her hair at a very, very, very young age. And it absolutely could be a sex-linked trait that she could have gotten it from both sides of the family. So, okay. Now males, so if this was like a male pattern baldness thing, notice that you're not getting that from your dad. If you're a boy, you're not getting that from your dad. So if your dad went bald when he was like, I don't know, 20, 25, and you're a dude and you're sitting there going, I wonder if I'm going to go bald when I'm 25. Not if it's a sex-linked trait, not if it's that kind of baldness, not if it's the early onset male pattern baldness, because you don't get that from your dad. Now, if your mom's dad was bald early, now you might have a chance to have it, depending on which allele you got from your mom. Okay. Questions about sex-linked traits? Sometimes you have to think through them. Like if dad had it, and kind of think through them, and you can figure it out. But if you can't think through it in your head, just do a Punnett square. Okay. Everyone got that? Not a big deal. Let's see what time it is. See if I want to go into X in activation or if I want to save that for next week. I'll save that for next week. Okay. So basically, the other things that you might have to deal with are codominant and incomplete dominant. And I went over those, just their definitions yesterday. So I won't go over them again. Just make sure you know which one shows both and which one shows a blend. And then multiple alleles. Let's just review blood type really quick from freshman year, just because it may be something that you've forgotten how to do. Just remember that these have to have a base letter. So this one's a multiple alleles. Multiple alleles. Okay. So this one, you have to have the base letter to indicate dominant recessive, and also the fact that this is the same gene. So you still are using this I gene. You just have to tell me which allele it is, because you have A, you have B, and then you have the recessive O. And blood type is one of the most common ones that we see, but they could also throw hair color at you. That's about the only two they ever will do. Hair color just has H's instead of I's, and otherwise they'll have all the rules for how it works. But basically, this is your type A blood, and this is your type B, and this is your AB, and this is your O. Okay. And so if you had a problem and they were like, well, sometimes they'll throw in blood type and sickle cell anemia, which is a codominant trait, and they'll throw those together. And I have a practice thing we'll do on that at the end of our genetics unit that kind of goes over everything. It has sickle cell and blood type in there. So we'll be practicing this kind of at the end where we put it all together. So let's say a man who's heterozygous for B marries a woman who is AB. And then we want to know what blood type children they can have. So you just fill in the boxes. Like I said, after you figure out how to use a Punnett square, and after you kind of get the basics down, you can do these with any of them. Okay, what if I wanted to know colorblind and blood type? Okay, let's just throw this in. So I have a mom who is heterozygous for color blindness, and she has blood type AB. And then you'd have your dad on there too.
I had a question about like reading the one that we just did, the IB.
Yep.
How did you like write that down, like on a 3 to?
We don't. 2. You wouldn't do a ratio on this one.
Okay.
You would just it would just be percentages. Yeah. Unless they gave you like the order of it. Like we could maybe come up with a ratio here, but they would actually ask you. Like they'd say, what is the chance, or how many or whatever you're going to have if they're this, this, and this. And they wouldn't ask you to like put it into a ratio because you have nothing like dominant. So unless they said put a ratio in this particular order, and then you just do it in the order they said. But there's no dominant. There's no rule on that with A and B because they're co-dominant. They're both dominant. So there's no way to know how to do that ratio every single time. Okay, so I've got my parents here. So I used this same Punnett square, and then the one from before with our sex linked, just like not going to fit on here. So I'm going to erase this. And then you would just be like, what's the chances that they'll have a colorblind boy with blood type AB or something like that? Okay. Colorblind male with AB blood. Question mark, question mark. Okay. And so then you just have to figure out your chances of that. So you do your little Punnett squares. And and then you'd do your multiplication rule. So I'm just using the same examples we did before. So if you already did these Punnett squares on like a piece of paper, you'll still have yours. I just erased mine. Chances of colorblind male. Well, that's a 50% chance. Do you see why I did that? You see why the male is 50% chance? Because I only have 2 males. And so one of them is colorblind and one is not. Now, if you wanted to like divide out and get your chances of it being a male and your chances of a child being colorblind, you could do that. So I could say color blindness in general is 1 out of 4. My chance of it being a male is 2 out of 4. Like I could still, I could make that happen. But you can also just take your little colorblind Punnett square male and put it together and say 2 out of 4. And then you could say AB blood. What's that? that's going to be 1 out of 4. And so that's going to be 2/16 chance. Okay. Questions? Yeah, it's not too bad. All righty, let's go work on our lab for a sec. That should be enough for this week. That was a lot for this week. Do you know what we did? We caught up about a week's worth of work on this week because of doing all these instead of dividing them into remote days and school days and all that stuff. So that was good. Okay, let's check out our lab. So pop over to your Pivot Interactives. Oh gosh, I just have 3 tabs now that I don't need. So you should have your little account now that you can just log in with your Google. And we'll try this X-linked. Hey, I already have some people that have started it. Yay. Okay. Everyone, my screen has a beautiful flipping purple box. There we go. I don't know. You're probably not even looking at my screen anymore because you're probably looking at your own. That's good. So this talks a little bit about Thomas Hunt Morgan, who is super important as far as these fruit fly traits go. And he also came up with linked genes, which we'll get into much more in depth before Christmas break, because that's one of our biggest tested genetics items. So he came up with the thing that Mendel's laws don't always work, that sometimes you have your independent assortment and your laws of segregation just aren't working. And so he tried to figure out why. And he came up with some, he and his graduate student was named Alfred Sturtevant. But they came up with this way to determine if, or to try to determine if genes were actually carried on the same chromosome. So that was the big difference, was were they traveling together on the same chromosome, or are they on different chromosomes? And so that's what he figured out. So you'll see this Morgan, Thomas, there's actually the distance between genes on a chromosome are measured in Morgans, centimorgans, actually, after this guy here. So that's where you'll see that name in the future. Okay, so you're supposed to click the tools button to find labels for the possible phenotypes of the flies. And then you're supposed to watch the video and label the square that shows where each different phenotype is placed. And then count the number of flies, okay? So it's telling you that he's looking at red eyes and white eyes, and this is a male, okay? So you're supposed to kind of look at the flies and try to figure out male versus female and white versus red and all that stuff, okay? And here's your tools. If you're not sure where to find stuff, you can pop over to my screen for a second if you want to and look. There's a little toolbox at the top, and it tells you, like, there's little labels so that you can label the boxes. So that's what those are for, okay? Oof. I'm gonna get rid of mine. Oh, I got a whole stack of them. So you're supposed to put them in the boxes here. So, okay. So then you're crossing a white-eyed male and a red-eyed female. So we're going to load that, and then we're going to hit play. And they dump a bunch of flies out. It's kind of, they're sleeping, usually. They're not dead. Oh, yeah, see, they're sleeping. You can see their legs and wings moving a little bit. So they're putting them in. Okay, so which one is that? A red-eyed male, it looks like. Oh, gosh. Red-eyed male look like. Oh, no. Was that a female? How the heck do you tell? We'll have to look in a second. I haven't done this one before. This one's new to me. We are getting all red eye.
I was looking at this at like 1:30 when I finished my chem test.
Jeez.
And I was like, this looks the exact same. I had no mental capacity of figuring out why.
Which one is which? I have to see, to me that one has the ovipositor on her abdomen, and so I would think that was a female. And they put that one on the left. That one does not have an ovipositor, that clear thing on the bottom. Now what about this one? So I don't really see an ovipositor on that one. Maybe it's just the lighting, but I think they put it on the left. Oh no, they put it on the right. Okay, what about that one? Oh. One of them, when he placed it, I was like, that one maybe. I was like, why did you put that one there? I thought it was male. Okay, so it looks like what they've done is done, let's see, what is this? Wide-eyed female. What's this one? I thought we were supposed to drag those to the boxes. Are we not? Do I know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Red-eyed male was definitely down in this corner. And red-eyed female. Oh, maybe if you do it, does it?
I think it's just to kind of like be a placeholder.
Yeah, is it? Because I'm kind of thinking that they're like telling me that. No, that works. Okay. Nope. See? Maybe you can only have one out at a time, and I keep clicking the same one because I'm like dumb and can't remember where I got it from. Okay, cool. So then down here, you just say how many in the end. So I guess I need to fast forward because I rewound. And I can make this like bigger. How many did they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I put that on top of them. Is there 20? Did you guys count? Oh, this thing? Are you talking about the graph, the Punnett squarey looking thing? Or are you talking about the data table?
Wait, what do you mean?
Oh, I was talking to in the chat. I was reading the chat. The data table, like down here. Okay, so I'm just counting. Yeah. I'm just counting how many I've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, I got 19 once and I got 20 once. How many y'all's getting in that red eye male on the right side? I'm getting 19. So total of flies.
I counted 19 to
15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And I think I'm getting 20 females, but I'm not sure. Someone needs to check my math. So that make a 39 total with red eyes. 20 and 19. Somebody check my math. And then white eyes, we didn't have any. So hopefully this answers your question here on how to do the data table. And then total, you just add them up. You just put the numbers in there, and it probably would have been smarter for me to count them as you put them in the boxes, but okay. And then of course I have to come back and score that you've done this. So you're going to have a 0 out of 2 on this until I'm finished grading. So 2 claims that can be supported by the evidence in the first cross. So if we had a red-eyed female and a white-eyed male that we crossed, and all the babies are red, what could we say? What's dominant? Yes, red. And white's recessive. So check those 2. Anybody have questions so far? Okay. We will, oh yeah.
Would that mean that the female, we don't know yet if the female is a heterozygous, right? Or codominant?
Right. Probably she was homozygous, or else you just seen some white-eyed. But yeah, we're not to that yet. So we're going to use the R&R to represent the eye colors, whatever, and identify the allele will be associated with each variant. So they want you to make sure you understand that you've got your red is going to be a capital R and your white's going to be a lowercase r. So you're going to do that and explain how you knew the answers, because when you crossed a red and a white, you got all red. Oh gosh. My computer is so slow that I don't know I'm making typing errors until it's too late. That's me. Okay.
Wait, so how do we know it's dominant again?
Because when we crossed a red, because the first parents were red and white. And so if white had been dominant, we would have seen all white offspring. But since all of the offspring were red eyes, we knew that red had to be dominant. And more than likely, mom was homozygous as well. Okay. So F1 cross. So Morgan continued his experiments with the F1 flies from the previous videos. He wanted to confirm if the eye color trait was inherited similarly. So that would have been the P generation. Remember, the P generation was red and white. So the F1, trying to get some vocab in here, the F1 was all red, okay? And so here are the parents of his next cross. So he's pulling two of those red crosses, two of those red ones. Now remember, these are like brother and sister, and that's disgusting, but that's the way it goes. So they're going to make F2 babies. Fruit flies don't care. So you're going to make a prediction about the offspring we should expect if the traits are inherited following Mendel's laws. So if there's no sex-linked trait, so you do a real quick Punnett square. I'm going to flip over to my whiteboard real quick so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so you do a real quick Punnett square. If they were not sex-linked, if it's just Mendelian, right, then both of our babies should be like that. So this would be our F1. And we know that because if all of our offspring, 100% of the offspring were red-eyed, then our P generation had to have been that. So this was our P, would have been that. So when I say P generation, make sure that you know what that means. Oh, you can't see. Make sure that you know that the P generation is the first ones that were crossed, the parents, okay? And then inside the Punnett square for that P generation is the F1. So that's the F1 generation. Okay, so now I'm going to take two of these, pick two, any two, put them on a new Punnett square for my F1 generation cross, and inside of there is going to be F2. So if I come up with that, and by the way, the F stands for filial, which means son. Okay, so the filial, the son's generation. Okay, so what should I expect? So it's asking me in my lab, if they were inherited like Mendel, what do I expect? Well, I expect 3-to-1 ratio, red to white. That's what I should expect, okay? So now I'm going to try to get rid of my whiteboard, which sometimes is hard. Okay, there we go. So 75% red, 25% white. That's what I should expect. Okay? Cool. Remember, that's if it's Mendel, following Mendelian genetics.
Is Mendelian not sex-linked at all?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
Well, Mendelian, oh my gosh, it keeps changing it. What the heck? I keep clicking and it's like changing my answer. That's bizarre. Yeah, Mendelian is just dominant recessive and all on your autosomes, which are your 1 through 22. They have to be on there or else your inheritance doesn't wind up like Mendel said it would. All right, so here we go. Now we have our red-eyed male and our red-eyed female, and I'm going to assume they're going to put them in the same place unless they just want to totally mess with my brain. Okay, so what was that? Dude, can you center it? Okay, so to me, this is an ovipositor right here, this clear thing on her butt. So I'm assuming this is a red-eyed female. If they do what they did last time, that should go on the left-hand side. Let's see if they put it there. What the? They put the red on the top this time. I'm going to have to kill them. Okay, so then that should be a totally different box. Red-eye male. So where's that one going to go? Jeez Louise. These people are insane. Okay. White-eyed male. I don't know yet. White-eyed female. I don't know yet. They haven't got one. Red-eyed male. They put down here so I don't lose my mind. Red-eyed female. They put up here. Okay. Play again. That one is a white-eyed male. Where are they going to put it? Oh, geez. So that means white-eyed female is going to go up here. And white-eyed male is going to... And the reason I know they're male and female is because in that very first screen, they show you the difference between a male and a female. I can't tell. So white-eye, is that an ovipositor? I don't know. I couldn't tell. Oh, there they go. Taken off. I don't know what that was, but it looked like a little piece of a fly, which is completely disconcerting. Cool beans, sorting those flies like crazy. By the way, you can do this in a biology lab. I could choose to do this with you, but then all my colleagues hate me because inevitably all the flies escape and they wind up all over the whole entire school. It's disgusting. All right, cool. How many we got? Get that little tag out of the way. $17. I'll count them my side and you count them your side and we'll see if we get the same thing. If you don't want to, if yours isn't running, you can just look at mine. I have no idea if I got the right number of females. I wish there was a little marker or something I could check them off. Okay, I got within 1 each time. What'd you guys get? I did get that. 17 red male. I'm in the chat now, reading the chat. 17 red and 17 white male. My females are a little.
I think I got like 35 for female.
Okay, I got 36 once and 37 once. So we're pretty close. Maybe we should just meet in the middle and say 36. 36. We have another 36. I think, yeah. Okay, so males, we got red 17, white 17.